I'm a Jeffersonian. And Jefferson felt, with Aristotle, by the way, that the chief function of a political society is to educate its young. That's what it's about. And we ought to be spending much more money on it than we do.
To make them liberated.
That's right. And if, as you remember, Jefferson felt that a very important part of that was that they should learn history, because by studying history, they could learn how to be vigilant for freedom. That's what he thought when cut out of history. And that would, of course, require literacy. But that would, of course, also require reading as an art. That is, where you're reading not to know a code, but for truth and imagination, and so forth.
But in order to read that way, you've got to learn how to read for instrumental purposes.
That's where I think you're wrong, if you think that. That's exactly what's wrong with our teaching reading
or
at present.
axiomatically?
That's what's wrong with our teaching at present. We take reading, instead of being an art, as if it were the learning of a tool subject. But this isn't at all how a person learns, because the person learns by an intrinsic need or reaching out. And what you reach out to is what's interesting. And if the text isn't interesting, then why bother? For instance, if I teach elementary Latin, and I have done this, I have, unfortunately, in my career, had to teach elementary Latin, I at once wrote them a little manual which was pornographic. Because every kid of 11 wants to read that.
Well, aren't you simply suggesting a revision of teaching procedures? But why do you go on to make the inference that the entire public school system ought to be abolished?
Because if we have a system which is run centrally, where we have 1 million children, let's say in New York City, and 50,000 teachers, and 1 million children, it will always be run as social engineering.
Well, there's plenty of pornography in New York City.
Not in the school system, unfortunately. I wish there were more. Well, fundamentally radical decentralization, not like the Bundy plan. I want to go down to tiny schools with about 25 with 4 teachers. I think I can show, and we've had experience of that you can run such schools at exactly the same cost as we now run schools with 28 or 30 kids and 1 teacher.
You mean classrooms, not schools?
No, a tiny school of 25 that would have 4 teachers and be 4 groups.
Isn't this a little unrealistic?
No, it's it's economically realistic in the sense that I can show the figures would be the same. It's realistic staff-wise, and in that I can show you have enough teachers. For instance, I'd use in each little school, I'd use a licensed teacher, a housewife, a college graduate who has taken no education courses, and a teenager who's literate and who's probably graduated from high school. That's quite sufficient, and that staffing is very easy to get and quite cheap, except for the licensed teacher. But it's realistic economically, it's realistic pedagogically, it's unrealistic politically, because the teachers' union won't stand for it and the Board of Education won't stand for it. But then they are wrong.